Dr. Zaidi, State Election Commissioner of Gujarat, Dr. Varesh Sinha, Shri Vinod Juchi, Deputy Election Commissioner, Professor Rajat Mona, Director General CDAC, Dr. Hemant Darbari, Shri Umesh Sinha, and distinguished guest. Just now, Shri Vinod Juchi has placed before you and given the uh, task which the Election Commission has already taken. I would just like to share some thoughts with you that conduct of election in India is a huge task which deals with uh, 850 million voters presently, and we are having elections for 543 parliamentary constituencies, 4,201 assembly constituencies, and ECI introduced IT in its functioning since early 2000, and it has made a lot of progress. The issue being discussed presently in this today's seminar is R-voting or e-voting. I would briefly, many of our technical speakers, experts, academicians, technology experts have given very good ideas on which I think Commission and all other stakeholders will have to work. But in brief, why I'm sharing this little ideas with you is that as Gujarat Chief Secretary, we had also introduced e-voting for the first time in October 2010. And then it was repeated in the election to the Gandhinagar Municipal Corporation in April 2011. Gujarat was that time the first state. The online voting system, the objectives which we had taken into consideration was that it is a convenient and voter-friendly channel using your desktops, laptops over the internet. It will ensure free, fair, and secret voting, and it would be an important step towards the e-democracy, and it would also ensure enhanced voter participation over a period of time. The salient feature of the system which was devised at that point of time was that it should have completeness and adherence to the applicable electoral protocols of the user agency, that was Government of Gujarat. Then end-to-end security using patented cryptographic techniques, ensuring availability and reliability of the voting system which is devised, maintaining integrity of digital ballot against the security vulnerabilities about which many of the technical speakers had in their presentation placed before you. Authenticity of voters, vote cast, and non-transferability of the vote was also to be incorporated. Some of the transformational processes which involved this introduction of e-voting was that it would ensure reduction of the electoral malpractices. Secondly, better system availability, convenience of time and space, secured, flexible, and state-of-the-art technological solutions to be provided, system efficiency in terms of time required for delivery of services, and it will also result in strengthening of the democracy. Uh, the technical experts have given many experiences, but when we had introduced this e-voting in Government of Gujarat, we had also taken into account the global experimentation which had been done with this e-voting. I would just share some of them because there are too many of them and there is no time to share all. But some of the important ones which Government of Gujarat had taken into consideration, I will share with you. I will give a little overview and the objectives which that institution or organization had adopted. The first one we had considered was the Victorian Electoral Commission. The state of Victoria had used e-voting solution during the 2006 lower and upper house elections, reusable voting terminals based on the standard PCs and customized e-voting software running on live CDs were used to allow blind and visually impaired citizens to vote without assistance. The terminal supported 12 languages and included special features such as headphones and a specially designed keyboard. The provided solution was thoroughly audited and certified by the BMM test labs. The main objective of the state of Victoria was to allow visually impaired citizens to vote automatically through the use of secure e-voting solutions at the poll sites. In addition to this objective, they also wanted a solution that allowed them to securely reuse computers that had already been purchased by the state. The second example we had considered was of United States, the Florida Department of State, Division of Elections. During the November 2008 presidential election, several thousands of the American citizens living abroad voted through the internet. In 2007, after the Secretary of State in Florida modified the law concerning electoral processes in the state of Florida, the county of Okaloosa allowed its overseas voters, civilians, military personnel to cast their vote using computers connected to the internet. The solution was implemented and used for the US presidential election in November 2008 in the county of Okaloosa. The objective, as was told, was that the state of Florida and the Okaloosa county had to address the difficulties that the state overseas citizens had faced when it comes to participating in the country's electoral processes. The e-voting solution selected by the state must allow voters to cast their votes on poll site voting terminals set up in various countries around the world and then securely send their votes via internet through a VPN to the electoral board based in Florida. An additional requirement was that voting terminal used voters' choice record technology for audit purposes should be used. The next example studied was the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs application. The French Ministry of Foreign Affairs provided a secure internet voting platform to the French citizens living overseas. In May 2009, 3.1 lakh French voters residing in Africa and America were able to cast their votes over the internet to elect their representative to the Assembly of France. Polls site voting was held on June 7, 2009. The overseas voters directly elect 12 senators who represent the French living abroad. This was a high-profile project of technology in France. The solution complied with the highest standards in terms of confidentiality, security, and audit. An audit on conformity as well as risk assessment study was carried out. The internet voting platform guaranteed a 24/7 availability in order to cover the time difference between the continents. In the second phase of the project, the platform was used by over 1 million French voters living overseas. The objective of the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs was to address the difficulties that the overseas citizens have to face when it comes to participating in the country's difficulties that the overseas citizens have when it comes to participating in the country's electoral process. A limited amount of polling places abroad and unreliability of the foreign-based service have traditionally resulted in a very low participation rate by the postal voting. The objective of the internet voting project was to include more of the overseas citizens to participate in the democratic process, simplifying logistics, save cost, increase security, while still protecting the privacy of voters. Another objective was also to validate the system before allowing all the French citizens living abroad to vote through this system. Then another important example which was studied was the Philippines. That was Commission on Election of the Philippines. In 2007, the Commission on Election of the Philippines decided to implement the first internet voting project in the Philippines. The Filipino overseas absentee voters registered in Singapore, that is a small country only, where the number was 26,000, were able to vote for the first time to cast their vote over the internet using secure internet voting solutions in August 2007. In an independent survey, over 90% of the participants considered that the solution was easy to use and highly secure. Before the election, hackers from all over the world were invited to try to break into the system. Over 4,000 attacks were carried out. None of them managed to break the system. Based on the success of this initial project, the Philippines Election Commission had recently announced the plans to extend internet voting to all the 6 million Filipinos who are living overseas. The scope of this project was to use remote electronic voter registration and voting technologies in an initial trial with a limited number of absentee voters in order to assess feasibility, security, economy, and logistical implications. The Philippines Election Commission has used this trial as a testing field for rolling out the technology in future with all the Filipino absentee voters. The project was quite successful, and the Philippine Election Commission had decided to use it in their elections which will be held hereafter. In the forenoon, uh, one expert, technological expert, Professor Purvi Vora from the Department of Computer Science, George Washington Center, USA, had raised many important issues, which I think as a technology expert, as an academician and a member of the team, she said, was working in USA on how to ensure that the voting secrecy, free and fair election and the transparency is maintained, which is very crucial and vital for the survival and sustainability of the e-voting system. So I think Professor Mona can have further dialogue, and we would also like to interact with this academia group. I think Professor Mona will be the right person, but through him we can, because you have raised important issues. I am not saying that we should not consider those issues. When we are committed as a country and as a global and the biggest democracy of the world, we should try to see that these concerns which have been raised, we should answer the question. But I would only like to question also, raise a counter question, that if the security is so vital for this, to ensure the secrecy of the voters, transparency of the voting system, then I think we are using today IT solutions and the software concerned for our ATM operations, banking transactions. So many other applications are being used. It is not that hacking does not take place in the ATM operations, Visa cards. You had said that it is because the user, he can access to his transactions and then come to know, whether something wrong has taken place, and he can check the system or counter the system. So these factors also, because, and I think in India, and now we have a system, when we talk of complete banking solutions, now I think all the private banks like HDFC, ICIC also, and so many other, Axis Bank also, and all the PSU banks, which are about 14 in number, they are using complete banking solutions. So today, whether it is a custom payment, your ship may be there standing on the port of Madras, and you may be the owner of the cargo, may be sitting in Delhi. Through electronic transfer of cash, we are able to do all the transactions, and custom clearance and so many other applications have been made where your presence in anywhere in India or anywhere in the globe also is taken care of, and financial transactions are taking place quite effectively. And we have been actually increasing the vision of the Honorable Prime Minister for the Digital India. I think there are so many new schemes. Today, Secretary of Science and Technology could not come, but I think he could have given many more examples of the new things where this IT solutions have been found. I would also just like to share some of the issues, just experience. Jutsi, just now Vinod Jutsi made a point that when Gujarat government introduced, the cost of one vote was 25 lakhs. I think that is not a correct statement. I would like to correct it also. I would just like to share, because I was the chief secretary when it was introduced in Gujarat. It was the decision taken by the state government. So we have to understand it is not a technology solution or IT solution which one stakeholder has to take. This type of major policy decisions will have to be taken by all the stakeholders to the system, namely the union government or our state governments, our voters, the ECI, the media. Everybody is involved in these type of exercises. But government of Gujarat decided that we will introduce e-voting so that people don't have to come to the polling station. It will facilitate, they may not be present in Gujarat, but still they can vote. Means you can vote from anywhere. That was also one of the reasons. The first issue which came was that we had to start the process. So it was started in January 2010. In January 2010, expression of interest was issued and letter of intent was also issued to the total solution provider in July 2010. But as this exercise was going on, there was one more parallel exercise was going on. Because when you have to introduce any new change, because after all, voting is the basis of the democracy. So we had to first take hold of our Bombay Provincial Municipal Corporation Act and the rules which are there. The two rules are Bombay Provincial Municipal Corporation Conduct of Rules 1994 and the Registration of Voter Rules 1994. The amendments to these two rules were made in June 2010 because election was to be held in October 2010. So very timely action was initiated. But the problem is that when you are doing all these initiatives are being taken, a PIL was filed in the Gujarat High Court, and it was filed by one Mr. Himat Singh Patel against the State Election Commission and the state government on 6 July 2010. So election was in October 2010, but this SCA was filed in the Gujarat High Court on 6 July. And number of hearings were held in the High Court of Gujarat. And actually the judges, the bench which was hearing this petition, even they also raised some doubt, that how you are going to conduct these elections. Because the major objection raised was secrecy, transparency. And one example they gave was, साहब वो तो जो उनका हस्बैंड है वो वाइफ का वोट दे देगा, अपने बच्चों का वोट भी दे देगा, और कुछ लोग तो पैसे दे के वोट भी खरीद लेंगे. तो इस तरह का जो एग्जाम्पल दे के they could influence the high court judges also. So, but we were not to give up. So actually we did a mock trial in the presence of the judicial members also, the judges of the court, to convince them that there is no such thing and all the security and transparency care has been taken. So court did not give a stay order and the elections were held in October, and one ward of the 5 municipal corporations of Ahmedabad, Bhavnagar, Jamnagar, Rajkot and Surat, this facility was provided. And why this 25 lakh figure is coming is because total vote which were cast was 182. And out of these 182 who got themselves registered, 124 voters had cast their vote. In the election held in Gandhinagar Municipal Corporation in April 2011, e-voting was provided in 11 wards of Gandhinagar Municipal Corporation. 670 voters had got themselves registered and 517 of them had cast their e-vote. So about 77 of such persons had voted, whereas the actual EVM voting percentage was much lower in the range of 40 to 50%. So reason is that we were all the time afraid of the High Court stay order, because if High Court gives the stay order, then we cannot proceed further with the e-voting. So one of the reasons given, decision taken was that Gujarat has got a state data center, very huge and with massive capacity. So there was no problem in using the same data center. But then our technology solution provider and the TCS, they suggested that you must have a separate data center. It is in that context that Government of Gujarat created a new data center. At this data center, the necessary infrastructure facilities for e-voting such as servers, network, antivirus, hub storage, backup, etc. were provided. The data center was the main center for computer application, data collection for e-voting, and had also worked as voting storage in the e-voting system of provided. The in charge of the data center looked after the working of data center during the time of e-voting as well as counting of e-votes. So this data center is not discarded. It is still working, and it is being used for other applications. The elections are held once in 5 years, but just because of the fear of this stay order of the High Court, the Government of Gujarat had to incur this expenditure. So I think that is why this figure is not a correct figure, because the system is still in place and anytime this can be used. The only thing was that this data center should be exclusively used for the voting, e-voting in the Government of Gujarat's municipal corporation. Now, the Government of Gujarat has not given up its policy to provide the facility of e-voting for the voters. The State Election Commission, the election commissioner is present here, is going to make a presentation regarding the various efforts and the technical issues, how they are going to cover for e-voting to the voters who will participate in the elections to the 5 municipal corporations in Gujarat state in October 2015. So I think some of the issues raised will get answered there. Now, it is not only Gujarat, there is one more state, that is Delhi. Now, the Delhi State Election Commission, along with the Delhi State Industrial Infrastructure Development Corporation, has developed an online mechanism for holding polls in the city. The State Election Commission is in the process of involving 12,000 voters in the trial run for the e-voting. Now, this name, Delhi State Industrial Infrastructure, may sound a little confusing thing, that how they are becoming relevant. But I was told by the State Election Commissioner of Delhi that they are the e-wing of the corporation, and that is why they will do this work. And the Delhi State Election Commission is also trying to integrate the online application with the mobile phones, so that the voters will be able to cast their votes just with the click of the button on their handsets. The State Election Commission is working out the ways to make it a foolproof system by linking the entire system with the voters' Aadhaar card. Now, Aadhaar card is a very effective and is a positive development which will facilitate mobile voting and also the e-voting. Once the voters would punch in their Aadhaar card number, the Commission would verify the biometrics and generate one-time password. The voter would then be required to punch in this one-time password for exercising their franchise. The Election Commission of India has been making sincere and hard efforts to ensure that all the voters of the country should be able to exercise their voting right in a free and fair and transparent manner. However, it has come to the notice of Election Commission of India that there are certain categories of voters who are still not able to exercise fully their voting right in a big way. The four categories are: the first category is of service voters, that is the voters who are working in defense services, namely Army, Air Force and Navy. The number of such voters is around 11 lakhs. Second is overseas voters. They are largely the non-resident Indians who are staying in different countries globally. Third is poll duty personnel who perform election-related duties during the state assembly elections and the parliamentary elections. And the fourth category is police and paramilitary forces who undertake election duties during state assembly elections and parliamentary elections. The Commission has been working closely with CDAC, Pune, to work out the relevant IT applications to ensure that these category of voters are able to cast their votes through e-voting or R-voting. As Vinod Jushi has shared with you the efforts which have been undertaken, the subcommittee has already examined, and it is still in the process of finalizing that how these service voters and the NRIs can be ensured to vote using e-voting. The CDAC Pune has taken the initiative to bring all the stakeholders in the two-day seminar. Premier technical institutes like CDAC, IITs, NIC, state election commissions, technology developers, service providers, manufacturing companies have all been invited to this seminar. It is also important to note that beside the internet-related e-voting solutions, we have now the facility of Aadhaar card, which has already been issued to about 84 crores citizens of the country. So I think the academic, technological issues which have been raised, we will deliberate and find some solutions. Thank you.